All right, everyone, let's continue on. Part 3.
I've been to Egypt many times, and I wrote a book that's been quite successful in being disseminated widely called The Great Pyramid Prophecy in Stone. Where do you place the pyramid? Does it go back to Nimrod or afterward, or have you considered that?
Yeah, no, I've a good friend of mine here in Hawaii actually gave me a copy of your book, so I read it early on in my research. And the thing for me to make this hypothesis fit, it doesn't demand for me that the pyramids were built earlier than the flood. You know, it's not necessary for that because I believe the pyramids, regardless of what time they were built, I believe they were built to reflect the constellation Orion in the sky. And Nimrod was the great hunter who was known, you know, he was worshipped as Orion in the sky. So there's a very precise connection that fits my hypothesis between Orion and the Great Pyramids of Giza. So I don't really challenge the mainstream view that Egyptologists say that the Great Pyramid, you know, and the three pyramids of Giza were built several hundred years after the flood. But yet I still remain open. I know there's a couple of interesting verses. I believe it's in Isaiah 19. And you bring up some information as well in your book that would place the dating of the building of these pyramids before the flood. So I don't take issue with that. My theory fits even with the mainstream position, but I'm open, and I think we're not going to know for sure until Jesus comes back, I suppose.
Yes, the Muslim Brotherhood, I know they have been grumbling about the pyramid, and especially the Great Pyramid, did not reflect the belief of Islam and tear it down. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's crazy. You know, I've actually, several years back, I think it was in 2002, right after September 11, I did a lot of research into the Muslim Brotherhood. And what I found out is that the Muslim Brotherhood was actually created right alongside Freemasonry in Egypt when Egypt was controlled by the British. And I actually believe that the Muslim Brotherhood itself is run by people who live in Geneva and London. So I see there's a very clear connection between the Muslim Brotherhood and the globalists, you know, the International Banking Syndicate, Freemasonry, and all these kinds of things. So I think it's at a lower level where you hear these Muslims grumbling about the Great Pyramids and the idolatry and, and all that kind of thing associated with it. At the highest levels, I don't think there's any danger there for the Great Pyramids because I really believe they're such an important moneymaker and a tourist draw. And I actually believe that the guy that used to be in charge of the antiquities of Egypt, Zahi Hawass, he was kicked out of power at the same time that Mubarak was kicked out of power. But I think simply because of the financial situation that Egypt is in, that they're going to have to bring him back into there and put him back in charge and give him a position. And if you know anything about Zahi Hawass, you understand that his career really grew out of the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and he has very many connections with international Freemasonry and Edgar Cayce's expectations that tie in directly with this whole theory. Because Edgar Cayce also believed that there was a figure, a body buried in the vicinity of Giza.
Yes, the tourist
A body buried in the vicinity of Giza, and I remind you of my dream of the pyramid in Giza. All right, let's continue.
Was a tremendous amount yearly for Egypt, and now then they practically, shall we say, cut their throat in ways by saying they're going
to
destroy all that. Now, after Nimrod, God divided the nations and set the bounds of their habitations so that, again, evidently one man could not get control of all the world and all the people. But here we see the New World Order, the United Nations, and trying to bring all the nations together again. Is that the spirit of Nimrod again manifesting itself today?
Yes, absolutely. I really believe that, and I show in my book that Freemasonry itself is the spirit behind Freemasonry is Nimrod, and Freemasonry is really involved. it's really key in all of these long-term plans of the globalists. But also in my book, what I do is I refer to Nimrod's empire as the world's very first superpower, and I also believe that the one world government that's going to emerge will be the world's last superpower. And the foundation of that end times world government is already being laid simply through commerce, through global banking. Every single nation in the world now is controlled by a central bank. Their economies are out of their people's hands. Yeah, all of this stuff is moving forward. One of the things I talk about in my book is I really key in on a passage in Isaiah, from Isaiah chapter 9 to Isaiah chapter 14. And I believe that all throughout there it's talking about the true Messiah and the false Messiah in tandem, and comparing and contrasting them. And it ends with Isaiah 14 in the reference to Lucifer, who's referred to as the king of Babylon. But what I come up with is I really believe that the king of Babylon in that context is not referring to Satan, it's referring to the Antichrist himself. So the Antichrist will emerge again as the king of Babylon. And then the parallel text that dovetails with Isaiah 14 is Revelation 18. And that's a description of the whore of Babylon. And she is referred to as a queen. So she is the queen of Babylon, and the Antichrist is the king of Babylon. And I really believe that there's a parallel here, just as the church is the bride of Christ. I really believe that the whore of Babylon is something like the bride of the Antichrist. And she represents, I really believe that at the end times, all of humanity is going to be separated into one of two camps. You're either going to be a part of the bride of Christ, or you're going to be a part of the whore of Babylon.
Remember what I've always said. Satan likes to imitate God, Yahweh, and Yeshua.
But really, it comes full circle, from Babylon at the beginning till Babylon at the end. And if you look at Isaiah 14 and Revelation 18 side by side, and I have a link to what I made a web page on my website at redmoonrising.com, and you can just look at them side by side, and they say different things, but the structure is parallel, and they are God's end times judgments against the world, a judgment against the king and a judgment against the queen of Babylon.
We know, according to the book of Revelation, chapters 19 and 20, the time is coming when millions of people are going to be beheaded during the tribulation. That is the method of termination that Islam uses. Is there any connection there with the Antichrist?
Well, yeah, I know it's a popular idea right now that the Antichrist will arise out of Islam, and he will fulfill the prophecies of the Mahdi. I agree with that to a certain extent, but I actually believe that the Antichrist is much bigger than just Islam. I really believe that at the heart of every pagan religious tradition, there is an expectation of a figure who will come from the past. Like, for instance, the Hindus are expecting the return of Krishna. The Buddhists are accepting a figure known as Maitreya. And yes, the Islamists expect the Mahdi, but then you go in with Freemasonry and the New Age, and there's all this expectation centering around the figure known as Osiris of Egypt. So I really believe, though, that the Antichrist, he's not going to be promoting this really a moral, it's a foundationally moral religion, Islam is, because it has a very strong list of moral conduct and rules for living. I believe the Antichrist is really going to be more of a pluralist, and he's going to try and unite all religions. So even though I believe there will be an important part of Islam that will accept him as their Mahdi, and I think this will be led by the Muslim Brotherhood because they're all tied in with Freemasonry anyway. But I actually believe that the masses of Islam, the common people, the poor people, the people who are being used as pawns, in this geopolitical war going on, I believe that they're going to reject this figure, because I believe that the Antichrist, he will fulfill a lot of the descriptions of the Mahdi, but he will also fulfill a lot of the Islamic descriptions of, they have their own version of an Antichrist figure. And I don't know how this came a part of Islam, but maybe just by the grace of God, but they also expect the coming of a terrible deceiver and a conqueror. So I actually have a positive view for the long-term hopes of the Arab peoples, because I think Islam is going to be really crushed at the beginning of the tribulation in connection with the Gog-Magog invasion of Ezekiel 38 and 39. So God is going to rescue Israel, and God is going to rebuke the nations that, strongly chasten the nations that are trying to destroy Israel at that time. And in that power vacuum that's left afterwards, yes, the Antichrist will rise to power. He will try to claim allegiance from all religions. But I still believe that, Jesus' heart is for the poor, is for the oppressed. And I really believe that there will be a powerful gospel witness at that time. And I really look to Isaiah 19 that talks about how there will be a highway of peace between Egypt, between Assyria, and between Israel. So I have hopes that the Arab peoples will turn to Jesus, and they will. A lot of them will have their heads cut off in the same way that they're trying to do that to unbelievers right now.
Well, Brother Good Game will be back again tomorrow.
On today's broadcast, Brother Hutchings and author Peter Goodgame conclude a short series on the book, The Second Coming of the Antichrist. Brother Goodgame, as we mentioned yesterday, is editor of a cutting-edge website that deals with Bible prophecy and the end times. Brother Hutchings, when will the Antichrist be on the scene?
We know that the Antichrist will be someone who will be alive at the end of the age. Brother Good Game, do you believe the Antichrist is alive today?
Yeah, I do not believe that the Antichrist is alive today. I believe he's dead. I believe his body is protected.
Now, right here, I just want to stop for a moment. I am not in total agreement with him on this part, and we'll explain later, and Barack H. Obama is going to play an important role.
This is kind of some of the sensational conclusions that I arrive at through my research. But in my book, I back up the conclusions that I come to with my study of the Bible and with other sources. So I actually believe that the body of the Antichrist is lying in wait, and I think that Jesus himself kind of referred to that when he said that don't believe them in Matthew 24. He said, don't believe them when people come telling you that the Christ has been found in a secret chamber or out in the desert, because I actually believe that's precisely where the body of the Antichrist is being held. And then Jesus went on and said that where the corpse is, there the eagles will gather. So he referred to a corpse, and if you look in context, I believe Jesus was contrasting the revealing of the Antichrist with his own revealing, because he talks about when Jesus himself appears, every eye will see him, and will be like lightning flashing across the sky. So when Jesus is revealed, he'll be revealed as the living God who once was dead. But when the Antichrist is revealed, I believe he'll actually be revealed as a dead God who once was alive. And then when, after the fifth trumpet, which is the opening of the abyss, I believe that marks the point when the soul of the Antichrist is released from hell. And then the soul will re-inhabit the body, which is a 5,000-year-old corpse. And it's rather spectacular and astonishing, but in two areas, in Revelation 13 and in Revelation 17, it says that when the people first see the Antichrist, they will be astonished. It will be an absolutely remarkable thing. His very appearance will be something that is just mind-blowing. And I believe that his appearance then will be followed by the signing of the 70th week covenant with Israel. And in Isaiah 28, that covenant is referred to as a covenant with death and with hell. So I believe that that's one of the reasons that Israel will be convinced to make a covenant with this figure, is because he himself will have literally demonstrated what they perceive to be his mastery over death and hell itself by being resurrected.
Yes, there are many signs. I recently wrote a book, 40 Irrefutable Signs of the Last Generation. There are many signs: increase of travel, as it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Lot, yet we see that happening right now. All the increase of travel, the call for another one world order, new world order, what's happening in Israel. Do you believe that the appearance of the Antichrist or the second coming?
Stay tuned, to be continued.